Would you stay on the stage? And can I ask our other three panelists to join Shona on the stage? And I'm just going to very quickly, as you come up, I'm going to ask each of the panelists one question, and I'm going to hand it over to the audience. And Shona, I just wonder whether I could start with you, since you're on the stage with a microphone in your hand. What's the balance with what you're doing between a sort of competitive strategy, even if sort of around a reputation for Barclays longer term or whatever, and collaboration? Is Halo Trade good for all and working with all and sundry, or is there some sort of competitive dynamic there?
So I'm sorry I was sort of a bit rushed at the end and probably skipped across the fact that Halo's actually spun out from Barclays, which is a first really for Barclays to actually spin out a startup company such as ourselves. And the reason that we spun Halo Trade out was specifically so that it wasn't just about Barclays having a competitive advantage in this space. It's really, really important that this is available to everyone across the globe, and that all banks and all finance providers, sort of, you know, non-banks as well, can all work with Halo. Otherwise, we just won't get that scale. So it's a very good question, but yes, it's not about one bank having competitive advantage.
Thank you. And then, Corinne, if I might, one of the things that it's clear that Danone has been doing in recent times is putting some of its subsidiaries through the B Corporation certification process. How's that going? Has anyone sort of tried it and said, enough already, we don't want it? And what's, in a sense, the longer-term game plan there?
Sorry.
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
So, sorry. I can answer the question, but maybe Blandine, who is director for the B-Lab partnership, can answer even better than me.
Okay.
If
Well,
you can.
the question is simple. I mean, what is the strategy of Danone in building its almost group of subsidiaries going through the B Corporation movement? I mean,
So it's exactly what I've explained about Danone being embarked on a journey of having economic and social together.
Yeah.
And we believe that B Corp can help us doing one step more on this journey, using business as a force for good. Mm-hmm. So that's why we have this partnership, and already 3 of our subsidiaries have been certified.
yeah.
And 14 others are in the process of being certified as well.
And do they choose to, do they volunteer to become
So yes,
part of the process?
the one they volunteer, and because they believe that not only it's a proof for them to be certified, it's a pride, but also because during the process they are learning a lot about themselves and improving.
And Charmian, the whole dynamic of the B Corporation world is voluntary in a way. Do you have a particular view on whether regulation is going to be necessary, and if so, what sort of regulation might be required?
What a good question. What a good question. So it is absolutely voluntary, and actually one of our really important messages that we like to talk about is that we are by business and for business. You know, hopefully you picked up a little bit of my remarks. I mean, we're a positive movement, so we are all about celebrating those people that are doing good things, not focusing on people that are not doing good things, for lack of a better way of framing it. So in some ways, the regulation side of it is not as important, because we will always be a place that is attracting the movement of those businesses that are leaning into this journey to become a B Corporation. Now, I should say one of the things that we're really excited about are some of the conversations that are happening with governments around the world, actually, about a sort of a related entity to the B Corp, certified B Corporation movement, and that is the benefit company or benefit corporation status. So in the US, there's, I think, 32 states that have passed this particular form of legislation. Again, it's absolutely optional. It's not something that is being regulated and enforced by any governments, but it's just a way for businesses who want to, at a sort of very fundamental within their constitution, celebrate themselves as being businesses that are about both shareholders and stakeholders and treating them both equally, that's an option that they can follow.
Thank you. And Suzanne, for many decades, or certainly years, people in this room and the organizations that they represent have seen corporations, businesses, as really the big levers of change. But you started to go into the world of cities, and you showed a selection of the cities you're starting to work with. And I think increasingly people are very interested in how you work with city administration, city mayors, and so on. We see it in the climate change world coming up the curve quite rapidly. What's it like? I mean, how are you picking the cities that you do actually work with? And are there some just tell you to go away?
Well, the cities actually pick themselves or volunteer in the sense that what it takes, and I think that was also very much the case in your presentation, Charmian, is you need to have a spark of interest. You need to have an idea. So the ones that we choose to work with, Mexico City was the first, and here there was a mayor who saw a soaring problem. So I mentioned briefly obesity before. In Mexico, they have the highest prevalence of obese children. So one of the things that the mayor of Mexico City wanted to address was how can we change that? And so some of the initiatives that are happening there range from what you can get in the canteens at schools to how you can organize traffic so that you can incentivize that people actually move around in different ways. So the partners identify themselves in a way. And then you mentioned climate change. One of the conversations we are having with a group like the C40 movement of cities is they started by addressing the climate change risk. But climate change and diabetes actually they share the same root causes, and they also share the same solutions. So that is why we can make, uncommon bedfellows and work that way around to look into what can be done. And then between the cities, we can then share that experience. There would be different solutions, whether you're Vancouver or Rome. But there also are some common features. And I think that's the exciting things, that you meet different types of people so that we don't speak only with the researchers who know about the metabolism.
And in terms of the theory of change, is the idea that over time you, with a small group of cities, will show what's possible, produce models, and then that will just go viral or whatever? Or
Yes.
Is Novo Nordisk going to drive this in perpetuity? No.
Well, I think whenever you make initiatives like that, you have to build a way where they can be sustainable, meaning that if we pull out, there still has to be that movement. So we don't have an end date, but we also don't have an exit strategy. So at least for now, we're in it. But I would presume that at some point they can fly, and then our role might change at least.
Thank you. Let me just check. Do we have microphones, Tiffany, that we can take in? There are some. Can I just check if there are any questions or comments that people have already? My name is Papa. I'm a proud member of Table 9B. I just wanted to ask a question. I work I'm a CSR project manager at Nando's. And I just wanted to ask a question to, I believe it's Corinne. So just employee engagement's like a huge piece for me because like that's how you get a message out and amplify it through a large team of people. And there's tons of management consulting stuff out there online. There's a lot of people who talk about like reverse engineering Maslow's hierarchy of needs and talk about how employees get engaged with your message based on that. I guess my question for you is, Danone's managed to achieve tons, but it sounds like you have an awful lot of employees. As a table of entrepreneurship people thinking, how do you get the message embedded? How do you get that message carried across to people so that if someone was to go up to them
they know what you do internally and can be ambassadors for what you're trying to achieve.
Thank you. Is that clear?
Yes.
Great.
So we do it in several ways. So yes, employers' engagement is something very important to us. And by the way, this is something that we discovered over the process. When we created Danone Communities, we believed it would be a fantastic laboratory for innovation, and it would be a way to illustrate our dual project. We did not really think that it would be a fantastic way to engage the employees. But we discovered that throughout the process, and what we're doing now is through 3 programs. The employees have the opportunity to invest in the fund, if they want, one part of their savings. Today in France, more than 40% of the employees have put one part of their savings into the fund. It's possible only in France for tax reasons, not for any other reason. The second thing that we are doing is that Danone Communities is part of the induction program and part of the story that any employee that's getting into Danone will know. And the third thing that we are doing is using Danone employees in order to bring expertise to the social businesses. So all the social businesses have some that we are supporting through the fund, have some needs. It can be in finance, marketing, whatever. And we are using the employees of Danone who are doing some missions, going to the field and then bringing their expertise in different businesses like that. So there is a program like that where employees can volunteer and go working for the social enterprise.
Thank you. Any other right at the back, if we can, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alex from Marks & Spencer. Kind of building on that question, do you think that kind of innovation needs to come from a kind of separate laboratory, kind of separate part of the business unit? Or to what extent do you think it can come kind of grassroots up within the core of a big organisation?
In a way, I'd like all 3 of our business panelists to answer that one. I don't know who would like it to go first. Corinne, do you want to start?
The way we see it is that it's not only coming from inside the laboratory, but it's mainly, I mean, today, if I think of, sorry, if I think of all the innovation that came, it was mainly from a bottom-up approach, going in the field and trying, learning by walking to do things, redo, restart, do again. So it was not really invented by someone outside, but it was done by using the expertise of the different partners in the project and then building on that.
And Shona, you indicated that Halo Trade was incubated within Barclays and now been spun out. I mean, how did that question get addressed within the bigger context and now that you're on your own?
Yes, so Halo actually started as an idea that I had. As I said, driving to work one day, and I entered it into a competition. It was an internal competition. And this is part of a program that Barclays participates in, as do many other large corporations, called the Entrepreneur Lab. And it is, you know, it does what it says on the tin. It encourages employees to think of ideas that can create social impact, but using innovation. And it's actually funded by our social innovation facility. This program takes place every year. There's a small pot of funding that goes to several of the winners, and we're encouraged to build businesses from within the business, and essentially to look at ways of disrupting ourselves, disrupting our business, but always with the aim of creating change for good.
And
that's how Halo was born.
And to the question, would people working anywhere in Barclays know that there was this scheme and they could apply and they would know what happens to
Yes.
Taylor Trade or whatever?
So, I mean,
how does that happen?
Yes, I saw it advertised in the lift, and there's just been a competition run out in Asia as well that some other colleagues of mine have just participated in. So it's happening all over the world.
Thank you. And Suzanne, how does it
Yeah,
happen
well,
with
so
Noble?
I actually think it's not an either or, but a both and. So in the case of Novo Nordisk, our purpose is to what we call driving change to defeat diabetes and other serious chronic conditions. So that's what the business is all about. So that's where it's hardwired into how we do things. But I was giving you the numbers about the diabetes pandemic. We are currently serving about 28 million people. And I showed you figures there. In total, the population of people with diabetes is 415 million. So clearly, if you want to do something significant about that, you cannot continue with the incremental improvements that we have through ordinary business plans. It does require exponential. And for that exponential, what we are going to do with that triangle I showed you is to launch a number of projects that will be much more lab driven, where we can experiment. We have some experiments which are addressing the base of the pyramid. We have other experiments about other connected devices, etc. So I think you need to also allow, just like Barclays has done, to nurture that kind of laboratory thinking, but not to say only that's where it should happen. So you also have to have it woven into or wired into what the business is about, just like Danone. So.
And how are people incentivized to come up with stretch forms of innovation?
Well,
I mean, not just the innovators, not just the R&D people. But
well, so I think the innovators are not just the R&D people.
Yeah.
So the innovators might as well be the marketeers who would think about this. So they would be incentivized by being involved in a project, and that the success of that project would then be their benchmark for a bonus.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Shah, you had a...
Yeah, I mean, I think each of these panelists have had amazing stories to share. I would just absolutely agree about the both and. I mean, we need a lot of innovation right now, and we need to find as many places as possible to source it and then to scale it. The example that I know a little bit better and I'm really inspired by is actually coming back to another B Corp, Patagonia, who we've already heard on the screen, Rick Ridgway. But Patagonia has a corporate venture fund, used to be called 20 million and change, and now it's actually called, I think, Tin Shed Ventures. And I wonder if that's because they have ambition to spend more than 20 million. And what's so great about it is that it's, as a B corporation, they are wanting to find ways to innovate and invest in external entrepreneurs, but who are absolutely aligned with what it takes to become a B corporation. So, for example, they use the tool that you need to go through to become a B corporation as part of their diligence screening for those companies that they invest in. And all of those companies, these external entrepreneurs that are investing in, they're all about helping Patagonia fulfill its mission, which is what makes it a B Corp. So again, I think both and what's awesome is that there are so many big companies and small companies and medium-sized companies that are experimenting with different laboratory models, which involve a blurring of, to use your language, John, top down, bottom up, but outside in and inside out as well.
Thank you.
It's fantastic to hear such high ambition from everyone, and the degree of innovation that you're all sharing, and yet you're all also sharing that there is still so much to do in every respect. In your experiences, are your businesses or any other businesses you work with ready to genuinely collaborate with other businesses to go faster, to really try and tackle systemic change in your space? Not necessarily directly competitive business, but others where by combining forces you could cover the ground even faster.
It's a great question, Nick. Who wants to jump in first?
I'll take that one. Just to talk about how at Barclays, what we did was realizing that we weren't going to be able to create that change or create that innovation by ourselves quickly enough, because obviously a big bank, it takes a long time to build anything and it costs a lot. So we actually have a strategy of looking outside seeing who is building what we want to work with and partnering up and collaborating, and we actively do that all the time. And I, with Halo was fortunate enough to be able to identify 2 or 3 different tech partners that I have been working with for the last year and a bit to be able to build on the outside and then bring it back in.
And do you consider yourself part of the sort of corporate social responsibility world or something different? Because in a way, we've created a profession of people dealing with society from companies. And what we're beginning to talk about here is something quite, it's a very different set of pathways to change. So you don't, clearly.
No, I come from the business. I'm a trade finance person. And yes, while I've always had a passion for corporate social responsibility, I'm not a professional. In fact, one of my colleagues, Katie, sitting over there, is a professional. We work very closely together, and we're very, very aligned in our thinking. But I'm actually bringing the commercial and the business side to bear in this, because I believe that business can drive change, and I can see how we can do that. So I'm hoping that what I can bring is the power of technology and finance to actually deliver results.
Maybe I could sort of also address the question to you, Suzanne, because Novo Nordisk is a member of all sorts of different business-to-business platforms, Business Council, this and that, World Economic Forum, Global Compact, and so on. And you've also done things in the diabetes and obesity space, like the Oxford Health Alliance, which was a very bold attempt at the time, but didn't work. How much appetite? How do you keep the appetite for these sorts of systemic initiatives going when you have failures along the way?
Yeah, well, I think to your question, I don't think we're doing it well enough or fast enough. That's absolutely a point. So we have a good tradition of collaborating in terms of research, because we simply need to collaborate with academic institutions and to bring together researchers. But when it comes to the marketplace, there we actually have, I think, less than a handful of great examples of how we collaborate with industry partners. So we have, I was showing the blood sugar measurement. Here we have a project where we collaborate with Roche on a complementary service. And we were extremely cautious going into that, because how is that going to happen? And it's actually working very well. So I think you need to have those experiments, and then you have to face the failures. And in terms of some of these other initiatives you mentioned, I think the connection that we still have to make is also, how does going to Davos in January connect with going to UN General Assembly in September, with what is actually going on in the market in Bangladesh? And I think that's a nut that we haven't cracked. So I think I would also encourage the sustainability or CSR industry to think about how can we, through these kinds of collaborations, make them commercial, just like what you are doing. And I think it's interesting when you say, I'm from business. So am I. But we just have different avenues, right?
We've got 5 minutes to run, and a question or a comment here. So if we could get the microphone there. Anyone else? Burning last comment or question? If not, let's take this one, and then I have one question for you all.
Hi, thank you. James Streeter. I'm here with 2 hats on. Firstly, Interclimate Network, which is a charity where we work with young people, secondary school children, to inspire them into taking action on climate change and ultimately lead them to a job. That's what I do in my voluntary. My day job, I work with different companies. I've spent the last 10 years working in the oil industry. And my question really is coming back to the question about regulation. Now, there's a whole bell curve of different companies in the world, and some of them see regulation as a big stick, and some of them see it as a small stick. Occasionally, companies need a bit of a prod. So I was just wondering, if we're going to reach the broad masses of the companies, how big a stick do we need? And I wondered if you might be able to give some examples of where in your organizations regulation has actually driven sustainable behavior. I know that Shona, obviously in Barclays, highly regulated, and obviously you had your inspirational moment on the back of legislation. So I wonder if you could perhaps expand upon that, and the others perhaps chip in where they've got examples.
Yes, so to the point of whether regulation is a big stick or a small stick, I mean, regulation is required. It's unfortunate that sometimes regulation is needed to make anyone move. But I don't believe, and I'm sure you all don't believe, that a big stick is the only way to create change. You also need to have lots of carrots as well. And that's the approach that we've tried to take, which is to say, yes, we're underpinning, you know, the regulation underpins the fact that there is an imperative to act. But in order to make, in order to create that, not the pull, but the sort of the nurturing environment that actually encourages better, better practices, you have to, you also have to create the right type of sort of chemical reactions really around the ecosystem of commerce to encourage better and better practices. So you've got the stick and the sort of, you know, top-down approach, but you've also got to create that encouragement and that that nurturing environment to grow.
Can I just press the pause button on that bit of the discussion and say that there was another comment or question here? Thank you very much. Let's just see whether that's complementary or wildly different.
Hi, I'm Helena Springate from RICO. My background has always been commercial, and that's what I wanted to touch upon. Susanna and Shona, you both said you come from a place of commercial and business. As a marketeer, for the first time, RICO is putting their sustainability into the business through cause marketing. And for me, we are in a very challenging market, it's a very challenging industry at the moment. But I'm aware that I've got some real responsibility to drive that. So with a business that has got a minimal pot of money for this year to dedicate towards sustainability and cause marketing, what would you recommend to implement to gain maximum social impact, but also a commercial impact as well, so I can make it scalable for next year to generate more money to do better?
Challenging question. Who's going to go for it?
Must be for the new business developer.
No, Suzanne, you have a go.
No, I'd like to give it a think, and then somebody else can start. Yeah.
Florian.
Well, I think there are different ways, and I think rather than the stick and the carrot, I think this is exactly the way we look at it in Danone, is being convinced that to have sustainable growth, we need absolutely to have social and economic that are aligned. So what we're trying to do now is to embed in our brands the social value, so that the top line growth goes together with the social impact. And I think this is exactly the way we need to make it, so that it's scalable and replicable. So there are different ways you can communicate to your consumer what you are doing good, building it in the equity of the brand. There are different ways, but I think this is the way to go forward.
Okay, Suzanne.
So I think first of all about carrots or sticks. I think regulation should be welcomed, and it does drive behavior change as well. But I think more importantly, fear of regulation is what is driving innovation. Because when we don't know where that regulation is going to end, then you see great solutions coming up. So actually that can sometimes be enough of an encouragement. So to the point about the cause-related marketing, actually I think what I would do is I would go through the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And many companies have done similar, and then they've done, look at what do we do, and then you can pick one where you can kind of cherry pick and say, okay, we do that. But that is only retrofitting with what you're already doing. So think about which one or two of the goals are most relevant, most where you can make the biggest impact for your business. And then tie that to your course-related marketing. Because the danger of course-related marketing is that it can become this kind of, I sometimes call it emotional pornography. And we don't really want to see that. You want it to be connected with your business. So that's why it has to be impactful in terms of the social problem it's addressing, but at the same time, it must be seen as relevant and meaningful for the people in your business. So I think I would start looking there.
So just before we unleash you into the roundtables, I think Charmian's got something to say in just a second. But before she says that, I just want to say something. I've been listening to this conversation, and to some degree, I'm still hearing a conversation that we could have heard 5 or 7 years ago. When I first encountered Novo Nordisk, they were very boldly bringing in groups like Greenpeace, people who were absolutely against genetic engineering, at a time when there was a very big risk to the business. When I first properly heard about Danone, it was when they were getting into their relationship with Muhammad Yunus. And I think those are two of the waves to date where businesses started to bring in very different players. And the point about the 1-minute video that we started with, or I started with, is that there is a very different group of people out there who think very differently about the issues that we're talking about this evening, and who see the Sustainable Development Goals not as an incremental agenda, but as an agenda that absolutely requires us to act and think in very, very different ways. So I'm very much hoping that when you get into your roundtables, you get into that. And just a final point, I think, Suzanne, you mentioned the UN General Assembly. In parallel with that every year is the Private Sector Forum. Last year's Private Sector Forum, we had Singularity University on the stage. And 2 people from companies came up to me afterwards and said, almost, how dare you put people like that? I mean, people who are really thinking exponential on the stage. It's completely irrelevant to what we're doing. Well, good luck to them, because this is an agenda that is coming at us really, really hard. It's immense fun. It's immensely exciting. And I look forward to the outcome of your roundtable discussions with Shah.